It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends it. Yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here alongside Eric Frandsen on a Wednesday. At least I think it's a Wednesday.
It's a beautiful Wednesday, and very, very soon, fall will remind us all that it's fall.
Yeah.
Temperatures are going to drop this weekend, so enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, enjoy the good weather while you can. A lot to go over today. Legal stuff, basketball, football, different rankings. Lots of stuff to go over, but to lead us off on today's show, we've got, speaking of basketball, we've got Utah State men's basketball head coach Jerrod Calhoun. Jerrod, welcome on to the Full Court Press.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jason. Good to be on with you and Eric, and love the show and happy to be here.
Yeah, always happy to have a loyal listener on, so that's always nice.
That's right.
I will admit I haven't listened to you guys much. We've been busy here with training camp and trying to get this team ready, so
yeah,
I usually listen to you guys during the season.
I'm sure we'll forgive you at some future point.
Well, we finally got the schedule out, and I know that's something you've been busy on. I think Eric Hout told us that it was, who did he tell us to blame? I still forget one of the assistant coaches. I still forget who.
Yeah, he was trying to throw an underling under the bus.
Yeah, just playfully throwing some people under the bus. But I guess maybe we can start with that, Coach. Just the schedule finally out, finally get the full non-conference in front. A lot of it kind of been reported already, and we talked about some of those games. But now that you got the full schedule, conference schedule, non-conference, just give us your impression of the slate of games that you guys are going to be playing this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the reason it took a little longer than expected, we were waiting on UTEP's contract to come back and kind of wanted to all, announce it at the same time. But, I think what we've realized is scheduling is just as hard as recruiting. It's really, really difficult. It's going to be a full-time job as we move into the Pac-12. Excited to sit down with Cam and really, strategically map that out, because now going to 32 games, we're going to have to get quite a few games. So it's going to be a full-time job. We're going to kind of break it up, all do it. I enjoy doing the scheduling. I think it's a crucial part of, a team's success. Wanted to challenge ourselves, certainly in the non-league. I think we've done that. I think there's a lot of teams on the schedule. I laugh when I see all these projections about last year. Well, last year is last year, right? Everybody's 0-0. A lot of teams have upgraded their rosters. So, we look at Ken Palma's not out yet, but obviously that's a metric. Bart Torvik is a metric that we use. And you have to really project what teams are going to do. And I think there's some really, really intriguing teams. Illinois State really has the potential on paper to win their league. VCU was picked yesterday to win their league. Memphis will probably be picked to win their league. So Tulane will be right up there. I think we've got a very, very challenging schedule. Travel-wise, it's going to be very difficult. At Charlotte, at South Florida. I think South Florida will be one of the most improved teams in the country. When you look at their metrics, what they brought in, real potential to be a quad one on paper. So it's going to be a challenge with the travel and some of these really, kind of sneaky good teams that will be picked to win their league.
You mentioned, the scheduling kind of being like recruiting and some of the difficulty. You don't necessarily have to throw out names of schools, but how many schools did you reach out to try and fill out the last couple of games on your schedule?
Yeah, I would say, at least 100, probably 100 schools.
Wow.
What's happened now, guys, is they're waiting to see, what's your roster, what does your roster look like, right? I mean, that's really why things are taking so much longer. They're waiting to see what you get in the portal. Who do you retain? What's your recruiting class look like? And what do you look like on paper? And then trying to figure out what makes sense, to play a game in the Delta Center. I think that's really, really good for our fans. But more importantly, it helps the numbers playing a neutral site game. We want Illinois State to have a great year and be a quad 2. To go to South Florida, we want that to be a quad 1. VCU neutral, we want that to be a quad 1. Memphis at home, we want that to be a quad 1. The MTE is going to be critical, right? I think moving forward, I don't love, MTEs that have 3 games. I think it's really, really hard on players. I think you saw Danny Hurley pretty outspoken about it. But we've got to strategically make sure that we position ourselves, MTE-wise. We need Boston College, Tulane, I think is going to be really good. We need BC and, whoever wins that other game with Davidson, we need those teams to win. We would love to, get a quad 2 or 2 quad 2s out of that tournament. I think we've challenged ourselves. It's certainly better than last year. And we want to get a number of games in the Spectrum. I think now with selling out every game moving forward, we've got to pay teams. We've got to get some home and homes. And there's a lot of talk. There's some early talks with, various leagues to partner up with us having to get so many games to make it a neutral site, not an MTE, but a two-game matchup. This will be announced hopefully in the next couple months, but we're going to have to partner up with these leagues that don't have as many teams now to get some quality opponents.
Again, we're talking to Jerrod Calhoun, head coach of the Utah State men's basketball program. You had mentioned Memphis earlier, and I know we've kind of touched on this in the past, but just as a refresher, getting them on the schedule is a big deal. I think they're a good basketball program, but also getting them in the Spectrum is a big deal. But how did it work out to have them in the middle of your conference schedule?
I think
did you have to give up a bye in order to make this game happen?
Yeah. So that'll be our bye week, which we'll actually play. First of all, I thought, Nico Roberts from the Mountain West, he's kind of in charge of basketball, does a tremendous job. So, we contacted him early on in the process. We're hoping it's picked up national by CBS. We'll see if it does. But both schools wanted a net boost late in the year, and I thought it made a ton of sense. And when they, said they would start it in the Spectrum, we'll return it next year. It was one of those things I don't think we could pass up. I think it's going to be really, really exciting for our fans. And I think you're going to see more of that. I think you're going to see some more big-time matchups. Football's over. The TV opportunities to play nationally televised games. I think there'll be a big interest in that game.
I hate to keep pestering you about the schedule, but I had kind of one specific question about the future of down the line. Like, what do you think the likelihood of getting Mountain West teams on your schedule when you've moved to the Pac-12 teams like New Mexico, Nevada? Do you think it'll be possible? I know there's a lot of friction between these institutions with the split up of the Mountain West and some of those teams moving to the Pac-12. Do you think you'll be able to get some of those teams on your schedule in the non-league going forward?
I think that's a phenomenal question. I can only answer it and get my insight on it, and I think you guys know I'm usually pretty honest. I sure hope so, right? I think the matchups going into the Pit, going to Nevada, going to some of these, fan base, it's really good for the fan bases. I think, it's certainly now a business. TV dictates a lot of this, but I sure hope so. I would love to play those teams in home-and-home opportunities. I think Grand Canyon coming in, playing them twice, those are 2 more either quad 1 or quad 2 games. I think it's awesome that they're in now, from a coaching standpoint. Now, all the other stuff, I can only speak for me and my program, but I certainly hope that continues.
Coach, let's talk a little bit about your team. This is you had some stuff in the summer. You were very open, letting us into some of these practices. You had a great open scrimmage, open practice at the Estes, and trying to be very transparent about what this team is, but also kind of letting people get excited and hyped about what this team is. And then you hold your amazing event in the Spectrum with this evening with the pros, which by all accounts was a smashing success. How much of that has kind of helped build some momentum going into now that you're in fall camp? Or was it useful? Did it help? Or is that like, okay, we had to do some of those things for external reasons. Now we can focus on basketball?
A little bit of both. I think it's really good for our guys, especially our 5 freshmen and our new guys, to get acclimated with the fans. I think, we'll probably try to do maybe one more open scrimmage here in the next, 3 or 4 weeks. We do have 2 exhibition games, which hopefully we could talk a little bit about the home game. But I thought it was awesome. I thought the night out with the pros, the number of texts, the number of letters from different players, to me, the ones that really, really get to your heart are the ones of the former players, how honored they are to be back, what it meant to see teammates. That was really what I wanted to do. And then to have 2 guys in the NBA that are active, that's not normal, right? I mean, with the success we've had here for a long, long time was pretty evident when I went to Stu Morrill's Hall of Fame induction a couple weeks ago. He followed up with an unbelievable text. Really, really thought it was so neat to see all the former players down there to honor Stu. I could have listened to him for 5 hours. I thought he was absolutely hilarious, telling stories. I think we do have momentum. We do have some continuity. We've got 5 returning players. Really, really exciting freshman class, guys that look different. They're long, they're athletic. And I think our transfers have done a nice job of coming in here and understanding that they've got to take ownership of the program, right? You don't play for Utah State, right? You are Utah State. And that's what I've talked with these guys. We're kind of in camp mode, preseason camp mode. We're really, really trying to get these guys in the best condition that we possibly can. We're making it extremely difficult on them. They're working through fatigue, working through all the things you got to do here in the preseason. We're not going to look perfect against Seattle. Hopefully we get better from Seattle to San Francisco, and then from San Francisco into that first game against Westminster, and you got to progressively get better, picking up concepts, picking up roles. We're figuring all that out right now. Who can pick up information and who can we trust in the game. But I think our players are starting to understand, the new guys, certainly the veteran guys, got to continue to own everything we do on a daily basis.
Talking to Utah State men's basketball head coach Jerrod Calhoun. I want to get some of these points thinking about the freshmen and then the exhibition games in a minute. But one thing I saw today that I thought was kind of interesting, I want to get your thoughts on it, because I was looking at EvanMiya.com. It's one of the analytics sites, at least that I reference, and he had his player rankings, finally released his player rankings and team rankings.
Did that come out today?
I think it was in the last couple of days, at least was when I saw it. And, at the top of the players, you have Miles Bird, you have Mason Falslev, pretty expected. His number 3 ranked player is a player that I don't think most people would put there, but it was Drake Allen. Do you feel like that he's pretty underrated, where EvanMiya put him there, but I don't think most people would have? I don't know if I would have put him there, but do you feel like he is one of the top 3 players in the league?
I think when you start to look at statistics and impact in winning, assists is a big thing, right? There's not many guys that pass the ball and see the game better than Drake. I think where he's grown this offseason, Jason, is his understanding how important he can impact the defensive end. He's a legit 6'4", 6'5", tremendous athlete, long arms. If he can take the next step in his defense, in his shooting, I think he's going to be really, really good. I certainly have not seen those rankings. I look at them. I love analytics, as you know. It's a big reason why I listen to you, because you're constantly talking numbers, and maybe you're talking about something we haven't. But I think he's made big strides this offseason.
And I guess to that, just as a follow-up to that, just the depth of your team. I know you've kind of highlighted this, and you've talked about your young guys. And for some coaches, and I guess maybe this is a roundabout way to get to this, Will Hardy earlier this week talking about the Utah Jazz, he's got a lot of young guys he's trying to work in. And the question was about how do you give them all minutes? And it's basically, it's merit-based. If you're doing well in practice, you're doing well in games, then you'll get your minutes. How are you approaching this with the team that you have? You got some guys that are veterans, but you also got a lot of young guys that need to get some minutes. And in today's college basketball world, if guys aren't getting minutes, then they may be thinking about transferring.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's a big undertaking of having 15 players on your roster, right? I think every coach in America is dealing with this right now. But I like the old saying of iron sharpens iron. To me, those things will work themselves out because the competition is so great, right? You see certain guys. I think of the 3 freshmen. We have 5 total freshmen. 3 have really made great strides, but the other 2 certainly have a lot of bright spots, right? So you're seeing things every day. As you get into more and more days in camp, you really see when you string 3 practices together, say a month, this next week will be a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I think in the next couple weeks, you'll see separation, right? Who can process not only what we're doing, but also a scouting report. Of all the 5 freshmen, I would say Elijah Perryman, day in and day out, has processed the information, has probably outplayed the other 4. But there's days where, David Oweezy looks like he belongs on the court. There's days Adlin Alameen looks tremendous, right? There's days Kingston and Braden Bowe are making shots and slashing, So I think time will tell. And then you've got to have really, really good conversations with guys and understand, hey, there's only 200 minutes in a game. There's only 5 starters, right? You're only going to score so many points. Those are all things we talk about with these guys. To me, this is the greatest time to play in college basketball because, if you don't play, you get the red shirt. Well, that allows you a year to grow, to see the game, to develop every day. We're certainly going to have to redshirt a number of players. If we don't, having 15 active players would be very, very difficult to manage. Typically you're going to play 10 or 11 early. This group right now is very competitive. The number of players, I don't really know what we can play yet until we go against Seattle and go against San Francisco. But I know these are some of the most competitive practices that we've had here in a long time because we have so many players, right? We have 2 more players than normal. But, yeah, I think it's, the strength of this team is going to be the depth, the versatility. There's no doubt about it. But the concentration right now is the competitive level, the endurance level, right? And then we want to be an elite defensive team, right? We've got to take that next step. So we're pressing, we're playing man-to-man, we're playing our matchup. We've tinkered with that. We have more length on the wings, right? We have guys with 7-foot wingspan on the wing and Adlin, right? We hadn't had that. That's very, very a nice thing to have. But we also got a lot of guys that don't know what winning looks like on a daily basis. So we're making it extremely difficult on them right now in our drill work and fighting through that fatigue to get them ready to play a game.
Do you know roughly how many players you think you're going to maybe have to redshirt, or is that a decision that you're just going to have to come to in the next few weeks as training camp keeps going?
In about 3 weeks, we'll have that number. I think that'll I think playing time and roles and, minutes, they kind of all work themselves out. Like Carson Templin has played great. Zach Keller has had moments. Gary Clark is tremendous. I mean, he goes after every rebound. He's efficient around the rim. He's learning the game every day. Those front line guys, I feel really good that we'll be one of the best rebounding teams in the conference. I mean, those guys eat rebounds. I mean, Gary and Carson and Zach and David, they're going to the glass. Those kids are big. They're strong. They pursue the basketball. So nights we don't shoot the ball well and it's not going in, I think we'll be able to win with our rebounding and our defense.
Coach, you kind of alluded to the home exhibition game. That's a big deal, and not only for the opportunity to fine-tune what your team is and your rotations and who may or may not play, but it's also important for the future of the program. Now it's a kind of a new thing where exhibitions can be used to raise money for local charities or other organizations. And The university is using this to help fund the recruitment and retention fund. Explain to us how that works and what you're hoping to accomplish with that.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely a great idea. You're seeing some unbelievable matchups in the exhibitions. I think you're going to see some very weird scores. I think there's so many new players. I think there's a ton of coaches and players that are all working through new situations, right? So you're gonna tinker with lineups. You're gonna try to figure out rotations. You're gonna try to work on certain things. Obviously, they don't count in the scorebook. But I think it's a great opportunity to put on the jersey in front of fans and get better, right? We wanted to use this opportunity to not only do that, but also raise the money that we have for next year's roster in the new revenue sharing model where the universities are sharing revenue with the student athletes. Next year will be the first time we've done that here at Utah State. It's a way to jumpstart our program. The goal would be to sell 5,000 or 6,000 tickets. Of course, we'll get probably 3, I'm hoping every herd ticket, but let's just call it 3,000 there, and we go sell another 6,000 tickets, $20 for the adults, $10 for the kids. All that money goes into that fund. I think it's a great win for us. The same thing with Illinois State. If we sell a certain number of tickets, which I'll get that number for you, we're going to get a kickback from the third party that's putting on that game for the retention fund. I think that's a $35,000. If we sell a certain number of allotment of tickets, that money will go in the retention fund. So the goal would be to raise $80,000 to $100,000 between the Seattle game and the Illinois State game, and I think it could be a really good jump start for our recruiting.
Yeah, it certainly would be. That's most of the way toward, at least the thing you threw out the number of like a starting caliber Mountain West player is somewhere between 100 and 200,000, I think, if I remember the number. I don't know if that number's changed.
Yeah, I think what's happened here, Jason, at our level, if you start to really study some of the leagues, right, you look at the Atlantic 10 and you look at the Big East. Neither one of those leagues has football, right? You're starting to see some of these projections to be very, very competitive, really good leagues. We've recruited against some Atlantic 10 schools, right? We lost a player to an Atlantic 10 school. So they're putting right now on this year's roster between $3 and $5 million for their roster in the Atlantic 10, some of those top schools. So, I think it's going to be really, really interesting over the next 5 years, right, what this looks like. The new Pac-12, obviously going to be a tremendous basketball league. Any way we can help our university raise money for this retention fund, I think is a tremendous win. So those two games in particular, all the money will go into that fund.
Coach, last question for me is just that last month it was announced that Utah State has sold out of its season ticket allotment. That's never been done before, which blows my mind. As good as basketball has been around here for as long as it has, that's never happened before. But single game tickets go on sale for some today, for others tomorrow. There's definitely a lot of excitement building for this season. I mean, what can you say to fans that apparently they're buying into this? They're excited. There's a lot of hype and excitement among the fan base getting ready for this upcoming season, and they're reflecting that by how they're spending their dollars.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors, right? Certainly, number one, you have to credit our university and our ticket team. I'm in here quite a bit late at night. Their offices inside the Estes where my office sits, they have worked extremely hard. They're extremely organized. They've put a ton of time and effort. So hats off to our team. Number two, the people that are buying the tickets, it says a ton, right? I mean, it's why you coach at a place like this. It's why you play at a place like Utah State. You're really only as good as your fans, right? And I think, nationally, there's not a better fan base, right? Our fan base is just incredible. I think it's also a testament to our players. You have 5 returning players. You have, on paper, the best incoming freshman class in school history. I think it's those things, there's been a lot of great recruiting classes, so I can't really, we'll see what the end result is, right? But on paper, it's really good. The transfers we were able to bring in. So I think there's real continuity in belief in the program. And it's just amazing. Even Stu Morrill made a comment about it, and there's been other former players that have made comments about it. It's really a brotherhood, and I think it's the ownership that the coaches and the players and the fans, they own this product, right? We all do this together, and that's been our message from day one. I think it was pretty evident at Night with the Pros what a special program this is. Yeah, we coach for the Aggies. We have players that play for the Aggies, fans that come to the games, but we're all owners. We're all taking ownership in this program and making it a special place. And I think if we continue to do that, the sky is the limit. And we've got to continue to see the momentum, right? We're seeing it in football right now. We have tremendous momentum in football, right? And you got to just keep going and going. And, it's everybody's believing and everybody's moving in the right direction. It's a great thing.
Coach, I know we've kept you for a while. If I can indulge one more question here, just want to ask your thoughts on Cam Walker, new AD, just your impression of the hire and of him so far.
Yeah, I think anytime there's change, there's curiosity, right? Who is Cam Walker? I was pretty fortunate. The women's coach at the University of Tennessee, she came up very similar to me. And I know her husband. He coached Division II. That's a tremendous story with what she's done at Tennessee already in her career. But she worked with Cam. I have a friend on the men's staff, Steve McLean. He's a very, very good friend of mine, coached against him, right? So as I made those calls, they all had great things to say about Cam. I got a chance to meet his wife. I got a chance to meet his kids. We want to do everything in our power to try to help him, right? I've sent him 3 or 4 houses within my neighborhood. My wife has to his wife. So, I hadn't spent a ton of time with him. Can't wait to do that. I think he's here next week on the 6th. And I think anytime there's change, there's curiosity. But I think, you saw the press conference, you saw his message. I think he understands today's world of college athletics, right? With the rev share, you have to have resources. So, I think that hire is really important. I think the second piece is the hire that will be made hopefully in the next 3 weeks with our president, right? You need university president, you need our athletic director in total alignment. They kind of set the vision of what they want the athletic department to look like. And I told Cam on the interview, the best thing you have 2 things that are off the charts, really 3 at Utah State. Number one, student athletes. You look at the academics, you look at the graduation rate across the board, record highs. We've never been as successful as we had academically. The student athletes are really here for a college experience. Number 2, you have one of the best fan bases, in-game fan bases, when you walk into the different venues. And it's not just basketball, it's all sports. And the third is the coaches. You look at the coaches we have. I've never worked at an institution across the board in all sports. They're all thriving. They all have great ideas. They're all connecting with the athletes. They're all winning. So really, once he gets here and lays out his plan for the revenue sharing, to me, that's the biggest piece. There's certainly other departments where we can get better. I'm anxious to see kind of where his plan is.
All right. Well, we've kept you long enough, Coach. Thank you so much for coming on our show and giving us an idea of what's going on with the program. And we'll look forward to future open scrimmages, Aggie Madness, and of course the start of the season.
You got it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Coach.
All right. We'll go ahead and take a quick break. We'll be back after this here on the Full Court Press.
At Mountain Valley Heating and Air, it's more than just service. They provide top-quality installations for both residential and commercial spaces. So you're not just getting equipment, you're getting a whole team of professionals dedicated to making sure you and your family truly feel the love. Whether it's a brand new installation or replacing an old system, trust the experts who care. Feel the love with Mountain Valley Heating and Air. That's mtnvalleyhvac.com.
Addiction is something in this day and age I think all of us have been touched by in some form or way.
For me, 14 years ago, I lost my father to an opioid overdose. Addiction is something that whether you're struggling with it personally or you're watching someone you love struggle with it, it can feel like there's no hope. If you've lost hope or you're scared for someone that you love and you don't see hope on their path, call Renaissance Ranch today. You can learn more at renaissanceranch.net. They have a location right here in Logan.
S.E. Needham Jewelers is where Utah gets engaged. Couples throughout the state buy their rings from S.E. Needham Jewelers because of our low prices, extensive ring selection, and extraordinary benefits and services with financing available. Go to seneedham.com to learn more. We have many unique and beautiful engagement rings starting at $500. You'll find affordable engagement rings with our integrity price guarantee. This is why we are where Utah gets engaged. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
Hi, this is Brooke Stevenson.
Ty Smith.
And David Castor with Adams Wealth Advisors. We're truly honored to be named Best of Northern Utah Gold winner for the Best Financial Planner. This community means everything to us, and we're grateful for every customer who made this possible. Thank you for your trust.
Advisory services offered through Adams Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. For important disclosures and more information, visit adamswealthadvisors.com. That's adamswealthadvisors.com.
It was a normal day.
He was in some minor accident, a fender bender.
And I had this impulse to call him, but I didn't because I thought I could call him later that week.
He abandoned the car, he came home, and he shot himself without ever talking to anyone.
When I came home that night and I found her, they told me that she had shot herself, and I couldn't believe it.
I asked if he was okay.
Taking a gun into your house for protection is a terrible myth.
Once you pull that trigger, that's it. There is no coming back.
65 Americans a day die by gun suicide. Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammunition. Help stop suicide. Learn more at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by Brady and the Ad Council.
The Full Court Press. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at 1069thefan.com.
Welcome back in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen. If you want to join the show, you can do so via the Young Power Sports of Logan text line at 435-339-0321. Many thanks to head coach Jerrod Calhoun for coming on and spending more time than we allotted. We usually have these for like 15 to 20 minutes, and we had him on for 30 minutes, and I usually feel terrible for having him on that long, but there was like always one kind of last quick question we wanted to ask. And of course he was providing detailed answers for a lot of these different things.
Yeah, great stuff.
And so love the outreach that men's basketball has had with us, the willingness to come on our show, week after week. It's been a couple of weeks because things have been happening on our kind of designated Wednesday when we've typically had these, but we've talked to just about every player on the roster, pretty much every coach. And a lot of things to be excited about. As I mentioned, there's players on this team who are expected to be among the best in the Mountain West. And, Utah State itself is expected to be among the best in the Mountain West. We'll get to that soon. We got to do a quick segment here since we went so long in that initial segment. And we do have some important news, Eric. I know we just talked.
News.
Yeah, we just talked about men's basketball and all that. Parading around as the Full Court Press, but in reality, we're something completely different.
We've got some significant breaking news tonight.
We got some breaking news.
The latest in conference realignment on the Conference Realignment and Expansion Show.
We were talking about Northern Illinois yesterday and the Mountain West making some incentives that they probably didn't need to make to lure their football program to the Mountain West. Well, Northern Illinois in the news again for changing conferences And they're going to the Pac-12, Jason.
Yeah, they're going to the Pac-12 in wrestling.
Yes, in wrestling.
Just wrestling. They're not coming in football. They're not coming in basketball. They're coming over in wrestling. So the Pac-12 getting a bunch of just different schools and different sports because they got something Baptist from like Texas.
Oh, right.
I forget the full name of their institution. Like one of the better baseball programs in the country, and they're coming to the Pac-12. You get, you're pulling Gonzaga for, most everything except for football. But you're pulling Northern Illinois for wrestling. Who are they? They're pulling somebody for gymnastics. I forgot who they're adding for gymnastics. But because they had three. They had Oregon State, Boise State, and Utah State. Was it? Oh, Southern Utah, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Southern Utah for women's gymnastics. So just picking them, pulling from around. You got to fill out some of these other spots. But they're finding good teams so far as I know. I mean, they added a really good baseball team for Pac-12 baseball. I have no clue if Northern Illinois is even good at all in wrestling.
Well, so Northern Illinois will join Oregon State and also other affiliate members.
Also
Cal Poly, Cal State Bakersfield, and Little Rock as members of Pac-12 wrestling.
As in Arkansas?
As in Arkansas. I'm not familiar with too many other Little Rocks around there.
Yeah, I'm not either, but there are surprising amounts of cities that have the same name as cities in other states.
Now, they need to find one more. Apparently, for wrestling, you need 6. So they've got 5. They need one more. So they says the Pac-12 will need, this is according to the release, the Pac-12 will need to add at least one more wrestling program to meet minimum requirements of 6 members for the sport in order to retain NCAA automatic qualification for its annual league champion.
So expansion not done.
No, there will be more.
Throw some money at UVU, see if you can get them out of the Big 12.
That would be a huge get.
That would be a pretty huge get, and I don't think UVU is going to buy it there.
And I don't think that schools like Utah State or those that don't have wrestling programs are going to start wrestling programs.
Yeah, I don't think Utah State is adding a program anytime soon. Maybe I should have asked. I think I was going to ask Cam Walker that, and then we're getting to the end. They said 1 or 2 more questions, so I prioritized the ones I needed to ask.
And I still went over, and I asked one more.
That's true. Yeah, you managed to beg one more, but if we'd have tried to do 2 more, we probably couldn't have pulled that off.
It's true.
So that's Northern Illinois heading to the Pac-12, but only in wrestling. They're heading to the Mountain West in football and to the Horizon in most everything else. So,
so they say.
Yeah, so they say. 9 through and 5 saying USU needs to bring back their historical, amazing wrestling program as part of the Pac-12. And yes, Northern Illinois was fairly good in wrestling. USU should be the team. Lots of wrestling greats from Utah. Indeed, there's some.
Yeah, the state has produced a lot of good programs, or good players and good wrestlers. Some of them have opted to go to powerhouse programs outside of the state. But
do either Utah or BYU have wrestling?
Not anymore, not that I'm aware of.
I guess if they did, they would join the Big 12.
Yeah,
but
BYU, I'm pretty sure they dumped theirs in the late 90s.
Everyone probably dumped theirs sometime in the late 20th century. So
yeah.
But, well, we'll see if Utah State can ever add. I know baseball and hockey seem to be on wrestling are all kind of on that list, but Utah State's not added a program, I think, since they reinstated women's basketball back in the 2000s. I think, isn't that like the last program they've added? Or do they add golf or?
That's a good question.
I don't know when they added golf and tennis.
Yeah, women's basketball might be the most recent and perhaps the last athletics program that was added for Utah State.
Yeah. We got to take a break. We got to get back on schedule here. We'll shift back toward men's basketball. A few thoughts. I mentioned one of the things I saw when talking with Coach Calhoun. We'll get to a few of the other things that I saw from EvanMiya.com, who released his advanced metrics, his rankings, preseason rankings for everyone in Division I basketball, along with his player rankings. And we can sort these by Mountain West and even Mountain West plus future Pac-12, future Mountain West members. So we'll get to that next here on the Full Court Press.
Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat is thrilled to welcome Dr. Jackson Deere to their team of trusted specialists. Dr. Deere joins Doctors Blotter and Robinette to provide exceptional medical and surgical care for your ears, nose, throat, and related structures of the head and neck. Appointments are now available. Whether it's allergies, hearing, or sinus concerns, Cache Valley ENT is here to help you live the life you deserve. Welcome Dr. Deere to Cache Valley and the team at Cache Valley Ear, Nose, and Throat. Now serving Logan, Providence, Tremont, Preston, and Montpelier.
Hi, it's Emily, and here at Serenoni, we know not everyone sleeps the same. Some people run warm, some love to bundle up, even during the summer. That's why we offer different fabrics and textures, from light and breathable to warm and weighted, including our softest Minky, Plush Lush, Minky Stretch, Waffle, and more. There's truly a blanket for everyone. Come shop our full collection in our store on 10th West in Logan, next to iFit, where you can feel the difference. Serenoni, wrapped in comfort, gifted with love.
This is Jordan with Primrose Home Care and Hospice. As I visit with people on a regular basis, I see many things we can help with. Recent falls, balance training, knee, shoulder, and hip surgeries, memory loss, housekeeping, help with medications, and that's not all. We at Primrose offer the best care in any situation. A great example of this is our preventative care program. While working with your doctor and using our personal approach, we can help prevent many of these situations. For more explanation, visit primrosecare.com or call me at 787-1369. Primrose Home Care and Hospice. We're your home team.
Yeah, military life can have its challenges, but sometimes veteran life brings more. While serving in Iraq, an IED took both my legs, but it didn't take my spirit.
As America's veterans face challenges, DAV is there.
My name is Greg Gadsden, 26-year Army veteran.
With the right support, more veterans can reach victories, great and small.
DAV helps veterans like me get all the benefits they've earned, and that can be a life changer.
DAV provides a lifetime of support to veterans of every generation, helping more than 1 million veterans each year.
Today, I'm an entrepreneur, photographer, and public speaker.
But there's more to be done and more victories to be won. With the right support, there are no limits.
My victory is just being the best that I can be.
Greg Gadsden, thank you for your service. May your victories inspire many more. Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
Talking the sports you care about. The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Yes, it's 106.9 The Fan. It's the Full Court Press. Jason Walker and Eric Frandsen. Find us again on 106.9 The Fan, 1390, 106.9 The Fan mobile app, 106.9thefan.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. Whether you listen every day, which we hope you do, or if you listen every now and again, however you listen, you're always welcome. You're always welcome on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321. And wanted to get into these advanced metrics. Jerrod Calhoun always likes when I do these. I like getting into these analytics because they can be great resources to just kind of begin contextualizing. Usually you don't use them as like the end all be all of your analysis. You don't want to take them as gospel, but they are often pretty useful in getting a full picture of where your team is at, where some of your players are at. And obviously it's preseason, so a lot of these things are going to change once you get actual data.
A lot of guesses in here. And sometimes it can, as you said, provide some interesting context, as though you still have to look at things at a broader scope. You can't just take some of these analytics as gospel, because you also have to consider, okay, well, who have they played?
Yeah.
Really, how have they performed?
Yeah.
Where did they play? So there's some things you have to kind of throw in your own context with it, but it does provide some good insight. And EvanMiya usually pretty solid with kind of analyzing the college basketball landscape for teams, and he's also gone as far as to do it for players too. Yeah, fantastic resource. I use it all the time. I think I usually include their numbers in my analysis. And so as you were teasing before the break and kind of mentioned in the interview with Jerrod Calhoun, he released his preseason numbers, which in the preseason, that's when these numbers are the least accurate, but it's the best we got at this point, just to kind of try and contextualize the entirety of college basketball as we analyze these teams heading into the season, which exhibition games are later this month. They're going to start playing. We might even, does anybody actually play an actual game in October, or is it only in the first, few days of November? I'd be curious to know that. Good question. Maybe while you're looking, Utah State's game that counts against Westminster is November 3rd. Yeah, so it's entirely possible that somebody gets started.
in the last few days of October. I know the NBA is like the last 2 weeks of October.
Yeah, exhibitions are the last part of October.
Exhibitions will be played in October. So we will see this Aggie team playing teams wearing different colored jerseys.
Yeah, here just a couple weeks.
Yeah, just a few weeks here. But let's look at EvanMiya's team rankings, and I pulled all these together, and I included teams in the future Pac-12 and the future Mountain West. So pulled together Gonzaga, Texas State, Oregon State, Washington State, and then for the Mountain West, Grand Canyon. Of course, they're in the Mountain West this year. But UC Davis and UTEP as well, who are going to be in the conference for basketball. So just ranking them all 1 through 18 on here. And not too much of a surprise. The first 4 teams in the ranking are all going to be future Pac-12 members. Gonzaga, they're at the top. They're ranked 12th nationally. Bit of a gap, though, between them and the next team, and that's San Diego State, who's ranked 40th by EvanMiya. And then not too far behind them is Utah State at 48th. Boise State behind them at 57th to round out that top 4 as your 4 best future Pac-12 and your top 3 Mountain West this year.
Yeah, and then we've had some discussions about Grand Canyon. They're making the move into the Mountain West. This projects them at number 75, but there's been some discussion, how good will they really be?
Mostly from me. I'm the only person in the world just screaming into the sky, I don't think Grand Canyon's going to be that good. But, I'm just the lone hater. I almost wanted to ask Jerrod Calhoun about that, but we kept him way too long anyway.
Yeah, I mean, what they've done in the WAC is nice, but doing that week, day in and day out, game in and game out through the Mountain West schedule is a totally different story.
Yeah, half the Mountain West, at least, is better than the second best team in the WAC last year.
Yeah. So I think they'll have a decent program, but I don't think they're just going to walk in and try to rule this thing. So a lot of people are trying to project that they will.
Yeah. And if you're a Grand Canyon fan, root for that, expect that, go be a fan.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and ruin your fun completely, but if they don't, well, I'll be tapping the sign. I predicted this. These are my analytics.
Perhaps a team that's further down than what we've normally expected, that kind of raises some eyebrows. New Mexico coming in at 105. But you have to remember, this is a new coach and an entirely new roster. This is not the same New Mexico that we've been used to these last few years.
As far as I'm aware, there is not a single thing that carries over from last year's New Mexico team to this year. Not a coach, not a player, not even sure the Water Boys stuck around. There might be some student managers that stuck around. Maybe there was a assistant coach. But as far as I'm aware, there is nothing, no continuity whatsoever. And so it's not
so how does Eric Olin adapt? He had a nice thing that he had going at San Diego. But how does he bring that to New Mexico, and how quickly does that succeed? It was succeeding at a pretty good clip where he was before. But once again, what's his level of competition every night? He had some big games here and there when he played some other good teams. I mean, Utah State saw that firsthand. But can he do that night in and night out in the Mountain West?
Yeah, and can he get this team together as quickly as possible? We saw Danny Sprinkle effectively do what Eric Olin has to do.
Right.
Very similar in a lot of ways.
It's been done before.
So it wouldn't be unprecedented. And New Mexico's gone out and gotten some good players. I don't know if anybody's going to be on the caliber of guys like Darius Brown, who was, an all-conference in the Big Sky. So I forgot which conference they were in. And then, Great Osabor, who was very much an up-and-coming star. I don't know if he's gone out and gotten players like that, but at the very least, New Mexico is capable of bringing in good players, and so they're not going to be a bad team, despite the challenges they face.
Yeah.
Another team in a similar situation, not as bad. They do retain their head coach. They lost a lot of players, mostly to graduation. That's Nevada. They did lose Nick Davidson to, did he eventually go to Clemson, I want to say?
Yeah, he transferred.
Or am I confusing him with the guy who went from Air Force to Clemson?
He transferred up. Some Power Conference schools snagged him, but I don't recall.
Offered him a bunch of money. I was hoping Utah State could try and add him, but then I saw the teams that were recruiting him, and I was like, well, that's not happening.
Yeah.
So, Nevada only one spot behind, according to EvanMiya. New Mexico's at 105. Nevada's at 106. That's a team that, Steve Alford usually has his team playing good. You have the impossible place to play, Lawler. Nobody can ever win there, right? You have to go to Lawler for your championship to be valid.
You're right.
But yeah, so Nevada and New Mexico are going to be interesting. And I think the next team on here, Colorado State, who's in at 111. And heck, even UNLV. Like, you have a bunch of teams who are replacing the vast majority of their roster.
Yeah, you've got a bunch of teams that I'll call newcomers, all kind of grouped together. Nevada is kind of an outlier a little bit because their coach is the same, but new head coach at New Mexico, new head coach at Colorado State, new head coach at UNLV, and they're all grouped pretty similarly together.
Yeah, 105 to 113 going from New Mexico down to UNLV. So a lot of teams where it's like, we know they're probably going to be good, but it's just like, how good is it going to go? Are they going to hit any major snags? And we'll see how year one goes for three of the coaches, and Steve Alford, just how does he rebuild after his latest cycle of players.
Right. I know we got to hit a timeout. There's some more schools that we can go through and give you an updates on those. But yeah, interesting to see some of these preseason rankings coming out from EvanMiya.
All right, we'll be back after this here on the Full Court Press.
New news from the Riverwoods Conference Center. All-inclusive pricing is now available for every occasion. Imagine your dream wedding, your daughter's quinceañera, corporate retreats, family parties, business conferences, or expos. Whether you're searching for a small private area, a breathtaking outdoor reception by the river, or an event that accommodates up to 2,000 people, the Riverwoods Conference Center makes event planning effortless with its perfect combination of beauty, service, catering, and now all-inclusive pricing. Visit theriverwoods.com or call 750-5151 for more information today.
Cold weather is here, which means you'll be using your gas fireplace again. Let Advanced Fireplace and Stove, the 4-time Best of Northern Utah gold medal winner, help you get it ready for those cold Cache Valley winters. Schedule a service call with one of their service pros today and receive 20% off if you mention this ad. If you're building a new home, Advanced Fireplace and Stove can design and install a Heat and Glow fireplace. From traditional to modern, Heat and Glow has something for every design and every budget. Find out more at advancedfireplaceandstove.com.
Need a great deal near USU? Mention Aggie 79 and score a room at the Baum Motel for just $79. Enjoy charming, homey hospitality in downtown Logan. You'll love the clean, spacious rooms and friendly, attentive staff. Take advantage of free breakfast, free Wi-Fi, and a seasonal outdoor pool. At that price, it can't be beat. $79 rooms with Aggie 79 at the Baum Motel. Value every day of the week. Call 435-752-5220. That's 752-5220.
Looking for a shed that's built to last? At Top Shed, we're making sheds great again. Crafted with premium materials right here in northern Utah, our custom sheds are built strong for the toughest conditions, and will even come built on-site in towns like Logan, Tremont, and Preston, Malad. With late summer and fall here, now is the perfect time to get your shed designed, built, and delivered for year-round use. Top Shed, making sheds great again. Call 435-760-7766 or visit topshedusa.com.
It doesn't matter who you root for. The Full Court Press has all the high school sports covered. The Full Court Press. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at 1069thefan.com.
Keep your car running at its best with help from Napa Auto Parts. Need a new battery or wiper blades? Napa has the best brands and can even help you with installation right on the spot at the store. Get Napa Legend or Napa AAA batteries. They can even test your battery to make sure it actually needs to be replaced before you go out and buy one. And if you need a local mechanic you can trust, visit a locally owned Napa Auto Care Center. You can find one at napaonline.com. Or just talk to someone at any of your locally owned Preston to Providence Napa Auto Parts locations. They can help you out with that. So, final minute and a half here of the first hour. We mentioned where EvanMiya, with his advanced analytics, EvanMiya Cow, I should say his full name at some point here, but EvanMiya.com mentioned the top 9, I think, where it was in order. You got Gonzaga, San Diego State, Utah State, Boise State, Grand Canyon, New Mexico, Nevada, Colorado State, and UNLV. That's your top 9 in order. And then the rest of the way, you've got Oregon State at 10, Washington State at 11, and then you go Wyoming at 12, San Jose State at 13, UTEP at 14, Texas State at 15, UC Davis 16, Fresno State rounding out the bottom of the future Pac-12 schools, and then Air Force at number 18 rounding out everybody of all. And when I say ranking here, this is all of the future Pac-12 and future Mountain West kind of combined into a 1 through 18 ranking.
Yeah, I mean, there's interesting like little gaps that occur in these rankings between Boise State and Grand Canyon. There's a little bit of a gap in Grand Canyon to New Mexico. Then you go further down between Wyoming and San Jose. There's a bit of a gap there, and then there's this massive gap from Fresno State and Air Force.
Yeah, it's like Fresno State is 17, and then there's Air Force. Like I think the gap between Fresno State and Air Force is about as big as it is between like New Mexico at like 6 on this ranking and Fresno State. I think it is
122 spots.
Yeah, that's just like Air Force is considered like one of the worst teams in the country.
Not good for the Falcons.
Yeah, not particularly great. Real quick, as far as the best players that EvanMiya ranked, had Miles Byrd at number 1, Mason Falslev 2. Mentioned this in the interview with Coach Calhoun. Drake Allen at number 3. Some other notable Aggies in these rankings. He had Carson Templin as the 6th best player in the Mountain West, Gary Clark at number 22, and Tucker Anderson as 5 Aggies in the top 30 of these rankings. That's going to do it for us in this hour. Stick around. We're going to talk legal stuff. Exciting.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. With the injury history of pitchers, it's easy to understand why teams hesitate to hand out long-term contracts. But if you watched yesterday's wild card openers, you were reminded exactly why front offices keep looking for those pitchers and handing out massive checks. Because they're the difference in October. Look no further than Detroit's Tarek Skubal or Boston's Garrett Crochet. Both stepped onto the mound with their seasons hanging in the balance and delivered a masterful performance. Skubal, electric. He went 7 2/3, 1 earned run, 14 strikeouts, and the Tigers won it 2-1. Moments later, Crochet authored nearly the same masterpiece: 7 2/3, 1 earned, no walks, 11 strikeouts, and the Red Sox won 3-1. In a 3-game series, efforts like those are invaluable. Hitters may slump, defenses may wobble, but an ace, his game travels. October arrives, no investment carries more weight than a great starting pitcher who can dominate. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.